right. And shout out to Anne Bruckner. Thank you. And maybe let's just do away with the waiting room and let folks stream in.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And we are back to it. People should just be able to join now. Great. Yeah, so the Village's master plan is significantly older, published in 1993. There really wasn't that much background that I could get either through interviews with people or with, publicly available documents that would be available to me without diving really deep into the archives at Village Hall. It hits a lot of the same notes as the town's master plan. It's a lot about focusing on defining the village's character, and thinking about development that's consistent with that character. And I just wanted to read this quote that I found really great from the introduction of the plan. Quote, "The overall picture that emerges from the questionnaire, which they did in writing this plan, is of residents who enjoy the community in which they live and, for the most part, would like it to remain the same. They do not oppose changes to the village, yet feel that any changes must benefit the village and its residents while sustaining its existing character." So that's a lot of what the focus of the village was, and not as much of a focus on environment or biodiversity, preserving land as the town's plan, but that makes sense as the town is much more rural and has a lot more open space than the relatively compact village. So when we're thinking about comprehensive planning through the lens of climate change, we kind of are thinking about everything through the lens of climate now. Federal action on climate change has really been lackluster in the last decade, especially the last few years. And now it has kind of come upon states, county governments, town governments, village governments to kind of do their own work when it comes to climate. There are some frameworks that exist on the federal level, but when it comes to resiliency, reducing emissions, there aren't sort of nationwide frameworks so much that smaller municipalities can look to guide their work. They either hope that their state is there to help them, which thankfully in New York, we have a very progressive state government that has some fantastic climate programs. So either small municipalities look to the state or they kind of have to do their own homework. And that is a key trend in comprehensive planning when looking at both what our very close neighbors in Dutchess County and the Hudson Valley are doing with comprehensive planning, and looking broader to examples outside of New York. Municipalities are starting to write about sea level rise and climate resiliency and heat emergency and fire, and some of the more unfortunate results of climate change in their comprehensive plans, just because they know that this is something that is part of their long-term future, and they've got to adapt to the parts that are inevitable and mitigate their own contributions to climate change. So some of the kind of most poignant examples that I looked to in the rest of the United States were Miami Beach, which obviously is facing some pretty severe sea level rise issues. I think the median height above sea level of the city of Miami Beach instead of this plan was 7 feet, which is not great for the city of Miami Beach. This plan was actually very progressive and interesting. They set forth these guiding principles for acting on climate with a big focus on social equity and taking a kind of longer-term, multifaceted perspective to combating climate change. The city of Portland, Maine, another coastal city, is integrating reducing its emissions very heavily into its comprehensive plan, in fact, superseding the state's own climate goals. So that's one way in that, or one example of how a municipality is forging its own path forward and thinking about emissions as something that it has to deal with itself, taking itself kind of separately from the broader climate conversation. And then the examples that we were looking at locally, Kingston is a great example. Kingston is kind of one of the stars of New York's climate story. In the climate smart Communities program, which is administered by NYSDEC and DEC and a couple other state agencies, and of which the village is now a bronze certified community. Kingston is one of the very few municipalities in the state that is silver. And they've gotten to that point by doing a lot about resiliency, posting short-term and medium-term goals with how they're going to mitigate their own inputs to greenhouse gas emissions and how they're going to adapt to a rising Hudson River. Phillipstown, which includes the village of Cold Spring in Putnam County, they did a consumptive greenhouse gas inventory that they're integrating into a new comprehensive plan. A consumptive greenhouse gas inventory is basically estimating the holistic greenhouse gas emissions of their entire community, thinking about how often do our residents take flights and have emissions from airlines. What are their driving habits? What are their heating habits? What are their eating habits? And taking a holistic look like that. So those are two really great examples that I came across and got to talk to some of these folks during the course of this project. On the other hand, you look at what the town's comprehensive plan actually said, and it was a really great document to start out reading because it is a very progressive document. It's setting forth a lot of kind of medium-term goals for the town of Rhinebeck's environment, its economy, what it wants to see, its culture and society. For its resources, it did this comprehensive plan involved a lot of coordination with a group called Hudsonia Limited, they're out of Annandale on Hudson, right near Bard, and they did a lot of fantastic baseline ecological research, in the town of Rhinebeck, which we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And then the town's plan also set forth hundreds of specific tasks that were to be undertaken either by citizen volunteer groups or committees that were called for the formation of in the plan, or they were to be taken care of by the Conservation Advisory Committee, now the Conservation Advisory Board, the town board, etc. And one important thing to note here is that 2009 was not a great time to be calling for a lot of either infrastructural or just capital heavy projects. It was this plan which was very, very ambitious and had a ton of great ideas. Having read this thing, it really stands out for its time as a plan that had a lot of really great ideas, and that reflects very well on the people who wrote it. But it just had the very severe misfortune of being published right at the tail end of 2009, the height of the Great Recession. It was going to be a tough ask for the town to hire the personnel, to hire the contractors, to hire the planners, to kind of see a lot of these more capital-heavy or time-heavy projects through. But the plan itself was still a highly prudent document, and it produced some really good results, which I'll talk about later. But it was just constrained so much by those budgetary and time constraints that kind of prevented a lot of the more just intensive projects from seeing really good outcomes and success stories further down the line. So getting into what I actually wrote about after having read the comprehensive plan, I think I've now read it a total of 4 times. I can maybe go a little bit before reading it again. So it wrote a couple of big reports. The first one was actually spurred by a conversation with Scout Pronto, who's a Rhinebeck High School student and on the call, and with Vanessa. And it was looking at this question of a natural resource inventory, which was something that kind of had its impetus in the comprehensive plan. Again, Hudsonia Limited, this great ecological research company out of Annandale, they produced this fantastic document called The Habitats of Rhinebeck, where they were looking at the rare species, invasive species, the protected habitats, the vulnerable habitats, and basically everything that you could say about the biodiversity of Rhinebeck in this fantastic document. And that was basically the whole chapter in the comprehensive plan about natural resources was the research that Hudsonia did. They did that research back in 2007 in support of the 2009 plan. So in looking at that, Scout and Vanessa, and also, you know, Josh and Elizabeth and I were thinking about this question of how are we looking in terms of if we wanted to actually, you know, finish it and get a real natural resources inventory done. A natural resource inventory is a study that kind of in the same way as a comprehensive plan, but on a smaller scale with a smaller scope, collects information regarding the status and condition of habitats, soil, biodiversity, air, water, all of the places' natural resources, and sets forth a framework for the protection, preservation, and everything else that you could think of for those resources. And it sets those out in a plan, having inventoried those things. And again, an NRI chapter was included in the comprehensive plan, but it doesn't really fully constitute a natural resources inventory on the scale of what you see our neighbors doing. The city of Hudson has a fantastic natural resources inventory that they just did, as does the town of Dover to our south. Yeah, and you know what we found while looking through the comprehensive plan and all these other documents that were published in the last 10 years is that the town, as well as the village, should they want to be included in this, are in really good shape if they wanted to get a full comprehensive plan done. Again, all of that kind of baseline research that was done by Hudsonia, it's already done. And having talked to the folks at Hudsonia in the course of this project, it doesn't really seem like that much original research needs to be done in order to get to a full natural resources inventory. It's more about kind of filling in the gaps and including a climate focus. And something that Scout was very noted very importantly is that this is a project that could really involve Rhinebeck's youth very well. Yeah, do you want to speak to that a little bit, Scout?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so to just add on to the subject of youth involvement in the NRI, we're currently talking with the high school about getting both the environmental club and other science classes to participate in some measure. What that would look like would be some of the students helping out with the mapping of assets, for example, going around town and logging any observations of invasive species. And this could be undertaken as a large project that the whole school commits itself to, or just a smaller one that's just involving the environmental club. But aside from the NRI, our goal is to get the local youth involved in other environmental initiatives, such as like the Thompson Mozzarella Park project, composting, and other just climate-related issues around town.
Great. Yeah, that's everything I would have said, but quicker. Yeah, and Scout was so fantastic, you know, helping me with this project. Again, I went to Rhinebeck High School, but I haven't really been involved with the town since I graduated high school in 2013. So she was a fantastic partner to have for this portion of the project, and she helped me write this report, which this report, along with all the other reports that I'm about to blab on about for the next 20 minutes, are on the comprehensive I believe the page is called Rhinebeck's Climate Comprehensive Review, and it's, you know, all online on as a part of the joint Village Town Environmental Committee website. So the second report that I authored was actually starting to look at the comprehensive plan itself, and I kind of split this review of the comprehensive plan into three parts, looking at the ecological, environmental, water, air, kind of more of a natural resources focus, shifting to then a transportation focus, and then an energy and climate focus. So this is the first of those three big reviews. This is also following a literature review that I did, which was kind of representative of looking at all those other comprehensive plans. That is available if you want to read that as well. That's a lot more jargony, written with more of a scientific format. So much fun, a lot of words. So this first report here, looking at land use, biodiversity, agriculture, and scenic resources, looking at those chapters in the comprehensive plan, what the comprehensive plan said about them, what the goals were. And again, this was looking at a lot of the work that was done with Hudsonia, cataloging the significant habitats and biodiversity in Rhinebeck. And a lot of what the comprehensive plan was saying was we need to set goals for conserving some very specific things. Prime agricultural soils in Rhinebeck to help Rhinebeck's farmers. We need to identify the best agricultural lands in Rhinebeck, preserve those, work with farmers, work with land trusts to make sure that we have conservation easements, especially in those very important habitats that Hudsonia had inventoried in their report. And yeah, those were the big focuses. Unfortunately, not much of a climate focus. In fact, none really at all. The climate conversation didn't really enter the municipal planning sphere until very recently. The words climate, emissions, global warming, climate change do not show up at all in this 2009 report, which isn't a failure of the plan. No comprehensive planning from, even up to 5 to 10 years ago was talking about climate change in the way that we are now. So yeah, there's, something to say up front. That doesn't mean that there aren't big implications for how Rhinebeck is looking at its climate conversation going forward, but just an interesting finding that it wasn't a focus yet. So the findings in this report, again, a lot of research was done, which puts us in a good place if we want to be working on a natural resources inventory. The plan doesn't really say much about how climate is going to affect the resources that it catalogs, but regarding agriculture and regarding land use protections, a lot of projects were recommended and not completed, not necessarily because of any sort of lack of will or impetus. In fact, some of these plans were superseded by things that the county was doing. The comprehensive plan called for a agricultural lands inventory. The county did that on a countywide scale in 2015. So just, an area where the town didn't need to kind of do the work that the county was already doing on inventorying agricultural lands. And that kind of, the fact that this plan is reflective of its time is, I think, especially reflective in this second report, which was looking at what the plan said about transportation. The plan was talking about people were looking at transportation and thinking about the oil crisis and the price of oil and the price of fueling vehicles, not talking about wanting to reduce the number of cars on the road or increasing Rhinebeck citizens' ability to take non-vehicle forms of transportation because of greenhouse gas emissions. Rather, was thinking of oil prices and the economic effect of the price of oil on its citizens. A lot of the focus of the chapters that were on transportation and traffic easement were about pedestrian safety, thinking a lot about roads that are consistent with Rhinebeck's historical character and its rural character, thinking specifically about pedestrian safety for the differently abled population in Rhinebeck, which is still very important. It also had this focus of maintaining the status quo at the Rhinecliff station. The train station, it really didn't want the Rhinecliff train station to become a commuter station. It just wanted it to be a regional stop, which it still is. There's been relatively little movement on that front. So the findings of this section, the transportation projects that were suggested by the plan, of course, very expensive. One of the key ones that I'll talk about a little bit more later is a pedestrian and bicyclist path from the village of Rhinebeck, from downtown Rhinebeck, to the hamlet of Rhinecliff, about 2 miles, potentially very expensive project. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Public transportation, always an issue in Rhinebeck, finding ways that aren't a vehicle to get around Rhinebeck itself and find ways to get between Rhinebeck and its neighbors. There have been some slight reductions in transportation service in Rhinebeck since the plan was published. And sort of a new front that we're facing in Rhinebeck on the climate front is electric vehicles. There are a lot of folks that are adopting electric vehicles in Rhinebeck. One of the best things that the town can do is talk both with its business neighbors and look at its own properties and see where it can install electric vehicle chargers to make things easier for people who have decided to make the emissions reduction step of purchasing or leasing an electric vehicle. Finally, looking at the energy and climate aspects of the comprehensive plan, again, this part of the plan is representative of the time in which it was published. Energy and climate were not looked at as issues on their own. They were always seen through the lens of something else. Housing policy, you're looking at how much energy a home is using. If you're looking at biodiversity, you're thinking about how the climate is changing. And again, the focuses were typical of the late 2000s, looking at rising fuel and oil prices for heating homes. And again, climate change, global warming, et cetera, not mentioned in the town's comprehensive plan. Not a failure of the Rhinebeck plan. It's just, representative of the times. No one was really talking about climate in comprehensive planning yet. Many of the energy initiatives that the plan was looking at have become a little bit outdated. Some of the certification programs and regimes that the town was recommending that its own buildings met, recommending that its residence buildings should meet or met, those no longer exist. It's just, the times have changed, the programs have changed. Reading through this chapter or these chapters of the comprehensive plan, trying to figure out what some of these certification regimes are, they just don't exist anymore. And going forward, the energy focus of Rhinebeck should be about increasing its residents' access to solar, to other renewables, making it easier for residents who want to install solar, who want to install geothermal, other sorts of sustainable energy and energy infrastructure in their businesses and in their homes. So getting back to that survey that we were talking about before, kind of as this project was wrapping up in the last couple of months, we were looking at all of the findings that we had while digging through the comprehensive plan, digging through a billion other things, and we were thinking about what projects we would like to see Rhinebeck accomplish, both the village or the town accomplish in the next few years. So we developed a survey to distribute to the general Rhinebeck audience, either to village residents, town residents, people who don't live in the town but their kids go to school in Rhinebeck, people who don't live in Rhinebeck but they work or have a business in Rhinebeck. And some of the really interesting findings from that survey, 76% of people say that Rhinebeck is moving in the right direction, which I think is great. I think the most interesting stat that I found while reviewing this recently, just to make sure that I had as many respondents as possible when I was reviewing this, is that while 87% of people say that Rhinebeck is doing better, either slightly or significantly, doing better than its neighbors economically, just under half say Rhinebeck is doing better than its neighbors in tackling climate issues. Part of that is representative of the fact that a lot of people don't know what exactly Rhinebeck is doing on the climate front. There were some questions that were asking how engaged are you with what Rhinebeck is doing with climate smart communities, what the Joint Environmental Committee is doing. And there was some solid responses there. People feel like they know that Rhinebeck is working on climate, and they feel like they have opportunities to give input about what Rhinebeck is doing in terms of both its general municipal government and its climate work. But still an interesting statistic that people think Rhinebeck is doing better economically than environmentally or in any sort of climate way than its neighbors. And then the question of these comprehensive plans that we've been looking at, is it time to update them? Overwhelmingly, people support updating these comprehensive plans, especially more for the village's 1993 plan. While, kind of learning about comprehensive plans, the state recommends, updating comprehensive plans on a far sooner timescale than 27 years. So it's not shocking that most people would be in support of updating the village's plan. We asked about what people's top issue areas were for the town and the village. A top issue for both was protecting air and water quality. But interestingly, the breakdown for the town and the village beyond that was pretty different. And the town people are really responded well to, farmers and farmland, that should say. In the town, people were really interested in protecting farmers and farmland and increasing the acreage of protected land in Rhinebeck. Whereas in the village, people were really responsive to any sort of possibility about reducing waste, increasing opportunities for composting, which is something that Vanessa and high schoolers have been working on, is increasing opportunities, especially for composting. And then also supporting a green economy and green investment and green businesses. That's representative of the fact that in the fairly cosmopolitan village, that's something that people want to see. So in terms of recommending future action, what we should be doing is thinking about what projects we want to see in the near term, in the medium term, in the long term, just like the comprehensive plan. In reviewing the comprehensive plan, there are some projects which obviously still are a high priority, are related to climate, would reduce emissions, would protect biodiversity. So those are the ones that we want to be looking at most. And in order to kind of balance those couple of things, we developed a project prioritization matrix, which is this really interesting, multifaceted document where we are weighting things like cost, things like the benefits to Rhinebeck, long-term maintenance costs, all sorts of things like that, and putting dozens of projects through this matrix and seeing which ones do best, having a balance of relatively low cost, but also very high benefits to Rhinebeck and its citizens. And then just as a fairly blanket statement to summarize the work of this project is that the comprehensive plan that we have is good, but no comprehensive plan that's even more than 5 years old is going to adequately prepare a community for climate change. Even a community in a fairly low risk area like upstate New York, we're not going to see rampant wildfires. We're not going to see huge levels of sea level rise, although that is something that we still have to worry about with the river. We're not going to see huge storm surges. Even in an area like Rhinebeck, where it's fairly safe, it is recommended that we look at pursuing an update to the comprehensive plan. And the town's comprehensive plan, it talks about the village. It talks about businesses. It talks about the village as a part of the town of Rhinebeck, even though the village has its own separate comprehensive plan. So what we are kind of thinking as an intermediate and immediate measure is look at updating the town's comprehensive plan, explicitly including the village in that, and making that update all about the sustainability measures that the town and village want to see done, what it wants to have integrated into its comprehensive planning, rather than throwing out both comprehensive plans and starting fresh. We're introducing an update that serves as a springboard for maybe in 10 to 15 years, anywhere in the kind of near future, medium term future, possibly in the late 2020s, a full, renewed, completely new comprehensive plan. So looking at the future projects that we could be looking at jointly between the town and the village, the first one is that joint village and town natural resources inventory. The village has its natural resources too that should be cataloged in a natural resources inventory, and including both the town and the village in an NRI, while integrating efforts from Rhinebeck's youth as much as possible is a really good idea. Again, this is something that was just started by the town's comprehensive plan back in 2009. We have most of the resources ready to go. And that's something that we could get done. It's presents a lot of great opportunities for Rhinebeck's youth, you know, a lot of the visioning that could be done in the natural resources inventory, the citizen science of identifying and cataloging invasive species. Those are projects that are just begging for youth involvement, especially because the fact that the youth are the people who are going to be living with this planning for the longest. You know, they're going to be living with these plans, and they're going to be living with the climate impacts longer than any of us will. These are kind of randomly numbered. I picked out a couple of really representative ones from this big list, which is again up on that website. So yeah, as explicitly mentioned in the comprehensive plan, one of the possible projects we could look at is building a pedestrian pathway from the village to the hamlet of Rhinecliff. This is obviously an expensive one. Sorry, is that?
David, you know that we funded that. We're doing that already.
Yeah. Alta has been
Right.
the process of looking at possible routes from the village to the hamlet.
Well, there's one possible route, and we funded a study which will be released shortly.
Okay, I didn't know that. Josh just told me about Alta.
Yes, Alta is doing it for us.
Great. Yeah, so obviously a more expensive one, but with some really big benefits, that being a much more safe way for people to get to the hamlet of Rhinecliff without having to use a vehicle, and you get a lot more foot traffic for Rhinecliff's businesses at the Morton Library down there, and you get an easier way for people to access by foot one of the best parks and opportunities for enjoying the Hudson River, the Rhinecliff Riverfront Park down there. Another one is looking at Vanderburgh Cove. Vanderburgh Cove at the more of the southern end of Rhinebeck. Something that was called for in the town's comprehensive plan was preserving land through conservation, critical environment area, CEA, including Pasco Lake, including an area along White Schoolhouse Road in Rhinebeck. Vanderburgh Cove is a very rare habitat along the Hudson. It is a submerged marsh, an intertidal marsh, very interesting place. The southern part of it, which is actually included in the town of Hyde Park within their borders, is already designated as a CEA. And it would be a pretty good slam dunk for Rhinebeck to look at preserving Vanderburgh Cove as a CEA. Basically, we would need to fill out an application and send that to the DEC, New York State DEC, which is the agency that designates critical environment areas in the state. So the key takeaways from this very long project is that Rhinebeck's comprehensive plan, it's a very solid document, but it's a product of its time, and unfortunately does not adequately address the climate concerns that every community is having to look at as we enter the 2020s. And climate is an inherent part of comprehensive planning as we move forward. An update to Rhinebeck's comprehensive plan, integrating both the town and the village with sustainability elements, is the most prudent way forward in my mind, at least. It's a great medium-term measure that will put us in a good position for future comprehensive planning as we move out of this decade. And the projects outlined by the plan should be undertaken with renewed energy now, especially those with tangible community benefits, tangible climate benefits, and those that are explicitly called for in the plan. There's a good balance of projects that were called for by the plan but never completed, or that have a really good benefit to the community and the climate at the same time, and those should be the ones that we are looking at going forward. And that is me. I believe we're done. Awesome.
Right on time. Well done.
Thank you, David. So we'd love to have a discussion and hear from the group. What are you most interested in? What do you think would make the most impact to Rhinebeck, to the enjoyment of Rhinebeck, but also to climate concerns? and any follow-up questions you might have.
Cool. We have some questions in the chat that I'll just answer first, and then we could open up the floor if that's okay.
Yeah, and maybe can folks raise their little hand and we'll call on you?
Oh yeah, it's a great functionality there. So questions in the chat: how is the significant restaurant business included in the plan? Not something that I focused on a lot, as this review was mostly looking at the environmental stipulations of the plan. But having read the whole thing and come upon the restaurant question, there's a lot of focus in the plan about making as open a business climate as possible for restaurants and businesses in Rhinebeck. Some of the work that's recently been done, I believe by some of Scout's classmates, is looking at increasing opportunities for composting and among Rhinebeck's restaurants. Elizabeth, do you have something to add? Sorry, I just saw your hand.
Yeah.
So, hey, Dave.
Hold on, Gary. One thing that concerns me is the Rhinebeck, our town comprehensive plan, puts the village as the center of our economic center is the village. We're all about protecting it. I think that we should work with the village on this. I would also like to see the village hire a planner and be more proactive in writing new zoning code for the village to protect small businesses there. It's of great concern for me that the village has not updated zoning to protect themselves as the economic center.
So, David, I'd like to jump in on the sea level rise question that Jeffrey mentioned.
Sure.
So just to remind everybody that the village of Rhinebeck did do a comprehensive study on sea level rise and with a grant sheet from the state. And as a result of that, we have done a lot of work to protect our water plant, to protect it from sea level rise with funding from the state from that grant to protect our water source. There's still more to be done, but the critical nature of protecting our pumps that bring the water in from the river and pump it to the station has been done. So I'm really happy that the village has taken that step from sea level rise as part of protecting our infrastructure.
That's right. And the village also had for it the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Dutchess County. There was the resiliency report that was written up by Danielle Salisbury, who's a CEP alum, looking at the other resilience items that the village should be looking at. So that is it sets forth a good model that the town had that, or the village, pardon me, had that report written up. And that's a really great report as well, looking at the Slate Dock Road installation. Yeah.
And just one more thing, I'd also like to jump in here since I'm the chair of the Hudson 7, that really looks very closely at 100,000 people that get their drinking water from the Hudson River. The Hudson 7 is very active at protecting our water source for all of the people who in the 7 municipalities that get their drinking water, which includes the coal tar dumping that was in Poughkeepsie. It includes the Champaign hydroelectric water line that's running down, and we've taken a lot of proactive steps as the Hudson 7, which the village and the town are members of, to protect the Hudson River. So again, we're environmentally, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of people participating in that effort to protect our resources.
I think Susie has her hand raised. Sue, do you got a question?
And folks, if you're not going to speak, please mute yourself.
Nope. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I was supposed to unmute. Hi, it's Susanna. Vanessa, actually, this is for you. So I was curious about it looked like we did not do the whatever that stuff was you were going to put down on the roads instead of the salt. I don't remember the brine, is that what it's called? It didn't look like we used that before this storm, and I was wondering, is that because we were getting so much snow? I know this goes with that land, I mean the water quality and protecting the river. So I thought it was a good time to ask.
Thank you for that question. So I'm going to, for the folks in the group who aren't aware, town and village highway departments are doing a pilot this winter to test out how to reduce our rock road salt, which is contaminating the environment and drinking water, seeping into the ground. It's also very expensive. So using this technique of salt brine, which is basically just salt water, spraying it on the roads to pre-treat. It's a technique, a tested technique for reducing rock salt on the roads. And the town actually did do a test of pre-treating with some brine. The village, we decided to wait till the next storm where we were going to get quite so much snow to be able to test how effectively that brine would help melt the snow. So it's coming. It is. If folks are interested in that, I'll share the link to that page in the chat as well.
Thank you.
I think Elizabeth is.
Yeah, the town has fully funded brining for the year of 2020, 2021. It's coming out of our salt budget, and it's a lot less money than we would spend on the tens of thousands of dollars we spend on salt. So we're fully operational. This past storm wasn't ideal because it was light and fluffy and had low water content, but we're going to take this whole season to figure out how to brine effectively, reduce our road salt, and protect trees, groundwater, and the environment. So we're beyond a pilot. We're fully moving forward with it.
And actually, to bring it back to this, to David's work in the comprehensive plan, reducing road salt was actually mentioned in 2009 in the comp plan.
Exactly. It kind of sets forth some of the issues that come up with oversalting.
I want to give full props to Bob Wyan, our highway superintendent, for taking this and running with it. The town of Rhinebeck is fully operational, and we'll have a lot more information in the spring of 2021.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to thank the Environmental Committee for really driving this program. The Environmental Committee really stepped up and drove with Vanessa and Josh, taking the lead to really put together a plan to make this work. So thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting. And it seems to be cost effective so far. We haven't spent a lot of money at all, and we're anticipating saving a lot more on salt.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I see Dorothy Baran has a hand up. I don't think you're Dorothy, but I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Can you unmute yourself? I can't hear you.
Are we there?
There you go.
This is Sue C. and Richard Kobushansky. I'm not sure if Dorothy is there. Would you like her to go?
Go ahead, Sue.
Okay, Richard has a comment.
No, I was just wondering if that brine thing that we are talking about. I think I've seen it on many roads. It's sort of like the truck comes by and it's like 6 or 7 sprays along the road, right?
Yeah.
We rigged ours out of PVC, and we have a several 100-gallon tank on the back of pickup trucks. We made them ourselves. So yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's too soon to tell, but have you seen any difference yet?
We've had one storm, so we just did it yesterday into tonight.
Yeah.
And as I said, the conditions were not ideal. It was a very low, a low moisture content, fluffy snow.
It would be great if it did work, and I'm all for it.
It will work, and we've got a year to figure it out. So.
Oh, good. And the other thing I was wondering about the pathway, the pedestrian way, whether it's walking or bicycle, whatever, from Rhinecliff to Rhinebeck, Rhinebeck to Rhinecliff.
I haven't used it in Ollie, we've been Zooming classes. We've been
Hello?
Zooming.
Hold on, Ollie and Dorothy, you're not on mute, and you can go next. Go ahead,
You're
Richard.
next. So I was just wondering, where are we with that? Are we looking
So-
to go along Rhinecliff Road, or
Yes,
are we talking to
Rhinecliff
Richard-
Road, within
Did
the
Richard-
right of way. And
Has Richard Creed been approached at all?
yes, and he's not interested. And
Uh-huh.
we're going to work within Rhinecliff Road from the station to the village within the right of
That'd
way.
That would be so great.
Yep.
It would be really great to do.
Yep,
And
we're
Thank you for
Josh.
working on it.
Josh is spearheading it with Alta, and he and I are working on it. He's carrying the water on it. So I think we just had a call with them this week. We're scheduling a public presentation at a town board meeting, and then a bunch of stakeholders meetings. Because, you know, aside from transportation, it's just a great walk from Amtrak to the village. So we wanted to
Yeah,
be
I mean,
safe and-
all these people who want to go to Rhinebeck and not take a car and go
It's-
to the restaurants and the shops, and I mean, it'd be great not
The
to get more
study
cars.
and the
into
plan
it.
are
Yeah.
funded, and it's something that we believe that there's money out there for, and we're fully committed to it as a town board.
Thank you.
Great.
So
Great.
Dorothy and Ollie, you wanted to go next? Oliver, you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself. Oliver, Dorothy?
There you
There
go.
we are again.
Okay, good, thank you.
Wait a minute. That's here.
Yep, you're good, you're good, Oliver.
Okay. Couple of things about planning of anything. And one of them is to look at the assumptions that which the plan is based on. I don't see these
Which
assumptions
plan?
here. And what I'm talking about is some mentions of the documents that exist and were part of this review was that the plans were out of date, and yet just talking about updating them. So one of the things that makes it out of date is that the assumption you had back when you wrote it in 1990 are no longer valid. They need updating, and so I didn't see any updates. I mean, any indication of what the changes were that causes you to create a new version of the documents.
Well, the comprehensive plans are living, breathing documents, and because we're constantly updating our zoning laws, we follow the guidance of the comprehensive plan. Do I think we need to spend the same amount of money we spent in 2009 to update? No, but I think the work that David and the environmental committee are doing is of great value to us. Again, you know.
I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm trying to see if we can't be even more effective.
We'll see.
So that's one thing. Another thing is it would help me if I saw more measurability, particularly with climate change. The amount of change that we're actually going to make in the global climate is going to be small, but having a direction as to how much we're going to contribute to, or how much we expect to improve that over time, will be instrumental in helping us to choose which projects and choose which technologies to recommend, implement, so have you.
Right.
Thank you.
So,
Good points. Thank
I'd
you.
like to respond to that, if I may. One of the reasons why we're doing the New York State Climate Smart Communities program is because it does lay out basically a roadmap for how to be more quantitative, especially with greenhouse gas inventories when it comes to emissions and that sort of thing. So that greenhouse gas inventory, we're part of a 9 municipality program, and that should be starting in 2021. So that'll be really interesting to see, and then we'll be able to measure our improvement and make more informed decisions. So thanks for that.
thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Are there any other questions, or who is the host now? Is it Josh or
I am. I see William has his hand up.
David, okay, so William, go ahead. Is that our reporter?
Yeah, Bill Kimball from the Daily
Hi, Bill.
Planet. So as you were doing the research on all of this, was there any part of what you did that looked at the accompanying land use regulations or zoning changes that might be needed to accompany what your goals would be?
Not necessarily. A lot of the zoning stipulations that the comprehensive plan set out were accomplished in the writing of the comprehensive plan. It was more of a lot of the infrastructure heavy, time heavy changes that were kind of left to be worked out after the plan was published. It was the zoning committee and the comprehensive plan committee worked really closely on some land use zoning changes. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the town board is the legislative body, and we are committed to zoning reform. I think we enact several local laws every year. We have, done community solar. We have done expedited permitting of solar. We're constantly looking at land use, whether it's short-term rentals, everything that affects us environmentally, going for our LED lights. So zoning law is separate from comprehensive plan, although comprehensive plan drives it. We have a very progressive board that's committed to pro-environmental legislature, and that's what we keep pushing that forward.
Thank
All
you.
right, I'm going to try to take this back here for a second. Hold on. If I can figure it out, it'd be interesting.
Josh, do you need to be the host here?
Yeah, if you could give it back, David, I'd appreciate it. We're just trying to.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, man.
So, hey, David, do you mind if I jump in here again as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to also add on to what Elizabeth said for Bill. Bill, this is for you, just so you're aware that the Village of Rhinebeck has, as a trustee, Vanessa Bertozzi, whose job is totally dedicated to the environment as a trustee for the Village of Rhinebeck. And so she's driving a lot of initiatives. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at going forward is how environmentally we can work with putting in new zoning regulations into our zoning, in conjunction with Lydia Slavey, who is a trustee for building, planning, and zoning. So there's some other work that's going to follow on, but what we're doing in the village is creating environmental policy for purchasing. And then we're going to be also looking at environmental policies into our zoning regulations. And we're happy to have somebody like Vanessa, who is, as a trustee for the first time ever in the Village of Rhinebeck, have a 100% focus on environmental issues.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Hey,
Meg.
Has her hand up.
Hey. I just want to say that I'm thrilled, having worked on the comprehensive plan for the town, that a couple of the initiatives that we talked about way back then are finally maybe going to come to fruition, like the pedestrian walkway from Rhinebeck from the village to Rhinecliff. That was planned a long time ago and nothing happened. No mention really has been made much about bike paths. I know we have bike paths along all of our roads, but our roads, as you know, the state roads in particular, are pretty darn scary. And I just wondered if any thought has been put into trying to create, something along our state roads that would make biking along those a little more friendly.
That was something, yeah. That was.
Can I jump in here? I just want to say that we have Governor Cuomo and the Empire State Plan to thank, or not. Local municipalities were not included in that. And it's really something that we're working with Alta on. The first step is Amtrak to the village, and it should be biking and walking depending on how much room we have, and then certainly developing trails. Again, Meg, the problem for us is you build it and then we have to maintain it. So getting grant money to build is easy. Maintenance is capital heavy on a yearly basis.
Right. That was the story with the Hucklebush Trail, which was a big focus of the comprehensive plan, and would have, involved cooperation with Red Hook and Tivoli and Milan, and just, the capital investment up front can be covered a lot with grants, and it's high initially, but it's medium for.
David, for us running a municipality, it's really budgeting for the yearly maintenance, and that's what
Exactly.
It's out of reach often.
Yeah.
The other thing before I lose my position here is my concern is that the planning follows comprehensive plans, or in terms of what they're requiring of anybody doing development, or even sidewalk work or all the rest of it. We haven't really talked about stormwater control here. Even though we're not a municipality subject to the, maybe except for Rhinecliff, subject to flooding on the Hudson River, we get flooding on a regular basis because of the kind of extreme storms we're having. And having pervious pavement and less solid surfaces is critical, and it needs to be something that is written into our planning laws and enforced.
Fair enough.
I don't see that happening.
Meg, that's a really good example of something the village will be looking at, is especially for parking lots. Thanks for bringing that up.
Well taken. Yeah, I agree.
Great.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Are we on?
Yes, you're on, Richard.
Hi. I was just wondering, the comprehensive plan tried to make Rhinecliff a little bit more a self-sustaining community. They in one respect, they went out and did certain things. And I mean, I was on the comprehensive plan, and I know that is the case. But in another way, it became so difficult if you wanted to work on your chimney or change your window, or
this is a bigger conversation.
Well, I'm just saying.
There is no zoning by right in Rhinecliff. It's a historic hamlet overlay within our LWRP.
There's so many overlays.
Yes.
I know. Who takes the ball and runs with it? But it's so difficult to do anything down here. You know what happened with our little market that down here. It took 7 months to put a market here, and that's.
I'm going to agree to disagree that it was more complicated than that. It was a lack of paperwork, and what you're saying is true. And we have approached Rhinecliff about stormwater runoff and wanting to look at it, and there's a reticence within the hamlet to change anything. And I think we have to go slowly there. The thing we're focusing on now is working with Amtrak to get the station
when you say
repair.
When you say you approached Rhinecliff, who did you approach in Rhinecliff?
Richard, we had public meetings, if you'll remember, about 4 or 5 years ago about the stormwater, and it was really brutal. So
yeah, there was a handful of people, correct? Yeah. But I think we're beyond that, and I think
the town board is open. If Rhinecliff wants to come to us and ask for some reforms, we're always willing to listen and work, always.
That's good. Good to know. Thank you very much.
And I wanted to thank David for doing the report. I think it's a wonderful effort, and that it would be great to revise our comprehensive plan and make it more topical with regard to climate change.
Well, Susie, you're a big part of it too, so thank you. You with what you're doing in the park for us. This is, and I really believe this, local government really only works when people participate. And you're a driving force in this, so thank you.
Thank you.
If I can also shout out a couple other people I neglected to thank at the beginning, in addition to Sue and Matt Stinchcomb, Dan Shapley, who is on the call, is also part of our joint environmental committee. and Andrew Hunter. And these folks showed up week after week to consult with David on this project. So thank you very much. As well as Gary, thank you for showing up almost every Friday.
Yeah, I mean, these are people who, had to walk me through a lot of this stuff. I come from an ecology background. In a previous life, I was an ornithologist. So the world of planning and zoning, it really was a lot to take in. And, as Elizabeth said, local government is super complicated. It's more than what meets the eye. And also the number of people who worked on the comprehensive plan and made it the document that it is, I had no idea the scope that, this undertakes. And that's why we don't want to take it lightly that an update to the comprehensive plan is a huge step. And we, just want to reiterate again and again that the comprehensive plan that the town of Rhinebeck has, and even that the village of Rhinebeck has, are fantastic. They say a lot of incredible things about what we want our town and our village to be for our businesses, for our people, about diversity. It's just that the world of the environment and biodiversity and climate are not things that we can legislate about once and leave for even that much of a time. It would be great if we could update our comprehensive plan every week.
Yeah, we can't. But thanks, David.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yes, please. Hello. Can
Hello?
you guys hear me? This is Paul Ostrander from Mid-Hudson News. I was hoping
Hello.
to ask 2 questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, the first one is for David. Do you have any title associated to you? Or because all the information I have is that you're a BARD graduate and intern. I don't know if you have a specific title.
For the purposes of this project, a joint environmental committee intern would be the thing to go with. I'm going to be working with the town moving forward, but none of that is final.
We have hired David in 2021 to be our town sustainability coordinator to help us realize a lot of the projects that are mentioned in the comprehensive plan that the town board, with the input of the village and our residents, decide we want to undertake. So he's really our first hire to help us push our environmental agenda forward. So we're really looking forward to that.
Thank you. And the next question is, do you guys have sort of a game plan for this? Who will be drafting the changes to the plan, when you expect to hold public hearings on it? Any of that?
We have no plans to rewrite the comprehensive plan. What we have plans to do are to look at what it tells us to do and enumerate projects and go forward. Rewriting the comprehensive plan, and I don't want to scare anybody, is not something that we're talking about right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Do you think that's fair, Josh, Chauncey, Alan? Yeah. I think we spent several $1 million on the comprehensive plan, and I don't.
On things that been not acted on.
Yeah, we're not looking at spending $3 million again to update the plan. We're looking to push it forward. We're pragmatic and thrifty. Meg, you know what I'm saying, right?
I know what you're saying, please.
It's a living, breathing document. So, we don't need to spend money to update it. We just need to move forward our pro-environmental agenda, in my opinion.
But this is a good way to compartmentalize issues within the existing plan. And if you take it apart and look at pieces of it, this is a way that maybe we can just move forward on a section by a time and not really take on the whole.
Are you talking about the town's comprehensive plan or the village's comprehensive plan?
Either one. This is a way that I'm just saying that there's a proposal that maybe a suggestion that we could compartmentalize it to look at pieces rather than the whole. That would help in reducing costs to be able to do changes.
I don't see us changing it, but I'm only one of 5.
I'm sorry, if I may, just a follow-up to that then. How will you implement these new ideas then without making changes to the plan?
The plan is a guide, it's a map. You can go off map and you can create insets to maps. The basic tenets of the comprehensive plan are to maintain Rhinebeck's historical character, our open space, and to protect the environment and to keep there are like a list of 17, Meg, help me here, guiding plans.
Yeah.
Those are all remaining consistent. Within that, from 2009 to today, we're more concerned about the environment. So the town board, as the legislative body, is committed to, moving forward those pieces of legislation. So we can have insets to our map. We don't have to send out cartographers to remap the whole country.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
That's all.
I mean, and I'm one of 5. I'm the chair of the town board, and the town board could decide that, yeah, they do want to do something, but I think we're pretty much in agreement here. Anybody else? If nothing else, I'd like to wrap it up. Josh? Meg?
I have to figure out how to use this. I'll say no.
Okay. If anybody has any other questions or comments, now's the time. If not, I want to thank David again. You're a spectacular find, and Vanessa, we're fortunate to have you, not only for the village, but for the town moving this forward. And Gary, as always, your leadership is, it means a lot. Working together, we get so much more done. And this is all on Gary and Vanessa and David and Josh. So thank you.
There is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, so much.
Meg, did you have something? I'm sorry.
No, just one more thing, and I think Vanessa's made a big start at this, hopefully, but the communication factor and getting out information to our residents about what we are doing, what we would like to do, and how they can help us do it is key. And it's been a problem, I know, because we lack a local newspaper. I think Vanessa is encouraging this on the village website. I don't honestly know what the town may be doing to get out to the residents of the town in general.
We're struggling. Again, Facebook was a disaster for us. And,
Sorry.
I
would say the town website is pretty active. The problem is that you have to go there and find it.
And you have to also subscribe to our, our pushes. We're working on it. Facebook doesn't work for a myriad of reasons.
Yeah. It's not something that any small town really has a good answer to yet. I think that
Thanks, David.
It's very hard for any small town to be using social media effectively. And it's so hard for a print newspaper to be operating even weekly with, shrinking distribution lists and everything.
True, very true.
So that said, everyone go subscribe to the town and the village newsletters, please.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Vanessa, David, Josh, thanks very much. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I think we still have a quorum. Do I have a second?
There's Josh.
Second.
Thanks, Josh. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thank you, David.